So I'll be coming out of Ezekiel 33 and 31. And I'll be reading out of the Living Bible translation. So it says, "So they come as though they are sincere and sit before you listening, but they have no intention of doing what I tell them to. They talk very sweetly about loving the Lord, but with their hearts, they are loving money." So proximity can be defined as nearness in place, time, order, or relation. Or in other words, proximity is known as closeness. So the character I wanted to focus on today is Judas. We all know Judas. And we can learn a lot from Judas. Some things that I want to point out about Judas that I think are evident and important about proximity. I have a list about 7 things. So the first thing is Judas was called personally by Jesus. Personally chosen, personally called, prayerfully chosen. Judas was with Jesus on a daily basis and spent time with him on a daily basis. Judas was given power and responsibility to preach the gospel, as his other 11 disciples were. Judas was on the boat when Jesus calmed the waves of the storm, just with the other disciples. Judas was there when Jesus fed the 5,000. Judas was there when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And Judas was also there at the Last Supper. So, looking at the outside, as we look at Judas, and as many people looked at Judas, we were deceived. We were fooled that Judas was genuine in his pursuit of God and his commitment to God. Even the disciples were deceived, as we see it at the Last Supper. Jesus brings up, "One of you will betray me." And every disciple was asking, "Jesus, is it I? Is it I? Is it I?" And when they found out it was Judas, they were shocked. Judas even fooled his counterparts, his co-workers, his other disciples. So, Christianity has become a method of proximity to a building rather than a spiritual closeness to God.
Yes.
And then we can see this in the life of Judas. Judas was known as the betrayer, right? And betrayal is something different than denial. If we look at Peter, Peter denied Christ. Judas betrayed Christ. Betrayal comes with a thought, a longing thought on something. Betrayal comes for a time spent on a thought. And that's what Judas was. Judas was always skeptical of Jesus. Right? He was always skeptical. He didn't agree with what Jesus did and the methods he took. And we can see that even in the story right before Jesus' death. And he's being anointed by this woman with the oil, and Judas he's upset. "Why are we doing it this way, Jesus? Why? Why this way? I don't agree with that." And Judas left shortly after that. But Judas' skepticism caught up to him. Never once did Judas allow the truth to penetrate his heart. Even in his closeness to be in the flesh with the living God, in his closeness, he never allowed the truth to penetrate his heart. So I have a question for us today. For those of us sitting here today, do any of us possess the character of Judas? Have we hardened our hearts to the truth of Christ? Are we deceiving ourselves by claiming to be followers of Christ because we faithfully show up to a building several days a week? Another thought I have for us is Jesus' betrayal was predicted, right? But not once did it mention the name. Never mentioned who it was, because it was a character that would betray Jesus. Not a person, but a character. A character. And another thing is also prophesied that there will be a great falling away before the return of Christ. And another thing that's not mentioned is who, but the character. Those who listen to seducing spirits, those who don't have the truth penetrating their heart. So the thought today is, do we have the character of Judas? Do we show up to this building with the character of Judas? Are we here in a spiritual closeness, physically or spiritually? Do we leave this place not changed? Because it's easy to fool every one of us here. Every one of us here can be fooled, just like the disciples were fooled. I have a quote to end it by our brother Charles Spurgeon. Every Christian is either a missionary or an imposter. Amen.